All right, welcome to lesson 4.2, multiply powers. All right, so let's see if we can do, these are called powers, right? The bottom is called the base, the small number is called an exponent. We've talked about this. So this power is 2 squared, or 2 times 2, 4. Now, right, when I'm putting baby stuff in a warm-up, it must be that I'm trying to show you something. There's a pattern here. 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, 8. So 2 squared times 2 cubed, well, we said 2 squared is 4. That's the time symbol. 2 cubed is 8. 4 times 8, 32. 2 to the 5th is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. Well, these two had the same answer. And we're going to go over why that is today. And 2 to the 5th, we just said, is 32, and 32 times 2 is 64. And 2 to the 6th is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And that also turns out to be 64. That makes sense, right? Because 2 to the 5th was 32, and we multiply by 2, you get another 2 to the 6th, or 64. So let's look at something here. We have 2 squared times 2 cubed equals 2 to the 5th. We also have 2 to the 5th times 2, and we'll say that's 2 to the 1st, equals 2 to the 6th. Or is there any pattern there? Let's see. If I have x times x, it's x squared, right? We did that in the last lesson. X cubed times x to the 4th, I'll tell you, is x to the 7th. Right? We did y times y times y was y cubed. It turns out y squared times y to the 5th is also y to the 7th. So what's going on here? Well, it turns out when you multiply powers, there's a shortcut. You can add the exponents. In fact, that's what you were doing yesterday. When we were doing x times x, there were ones there. 1 plus 1 is 2. When we were doing the last lesson and did y times y times y, there were ones there. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. And I've really taught you the lesson. So to multiply powers with the same base. You can't, if you have x times y, that's x times y. You can't do anything to that. But if you have the same base, in this case, x, and you do x squared times x cubed, you just add the 2 plus 3 together and you get x to the 5th. Now why does that work? Well, because x squared is x times x. X cubed is x times x times x. And they're being multiplied together. So what is that? That's x to the 5th. It's that simple. So treat this just like x. So 7 to the 8th times 7, there's a 1 there, right, that we don't write. And so you do 7 times 7, and then 8 plus 1, that's 7 to the 9th. You treat it just like as if it were x. All right, and so the x to the 8th times x is x to the 9th. Now, that's because we're simplifying. That's why the word simplify was underlined. If I said evaluate, yeah, you'd have to do 7 times 7 times 7. You don't want to do that. So this is 10 squared times 10 cubed times 10 to the 4th. What does that have to be? Well, you treat it just like x. You keep the x, so it would be 10, and 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 9. That's 10 to the 9th. 1/3 of the 5th times 1/3. Remember, there's a 1 there. That's really the only possible area of mistake. Also, that you have to remember to bring these parentheses along, and it's 1/5 to the 6th. All right, so let's see if you can work backwards a little bit. What does that question mark have to be? Well, where it's 2 plus blank equals 5, right? What has to go in there? Well, it has to be 3, right? The question mark has to be 3. Because 8 squared times 8 cubed is what equals 8 to the 5th. Same thing here. So what's the question mark? Well, if we know there's a 1 there, right, because there's nothing there, right? It's not a 0, it's a 1. So what's the question mark got to be? It's got to be a 5, right? The question mark here has to be a 5. 2 to the 7th, 2 sevenths to the 5th times 2 sevenths is 2 sevenths to the 6th. All right, now, the other tricky part of this is coefficients, right? I said the coefficients, the most important vocabulary word of the year. All right, so what are the coefficients? 2 and 7. So you're going to multiply the coefficients. Right? There's no power there. They're not powers, they're coefficients. Then we have the powers, x to the third power and x to the fifth power. And x cubed times x to the fifth is x to the eighth. So you multiply the coefficients, and then you multiply the powers all separately, and then you just bring it together. That's all you do. Don't make it more complicated. So what's this? Negative 5 times 3, negative 15. Y times y to the 11th, y to the 12th, because there's a 1 there. You have to add to the 11. X squared times xx to the 4th is equal to 6, 1 times 6, if you want to write that in. X squared times x to the 4th, x to the 6th, right? You're adding the exponents. We are multiplying powers, right? If you put numbers in here, like you put 5 in there, and actually do the work, all right, it will equal 5 to the 6th if x was 5, all right? And if I put a 6 in front of there, it will all work out. But we're multiplying numbers here. This adding business is a shortcut. Please understand that. We're not adding. We're multiplying powers. And so this is 8y squared, right? Y times y is y squared. All right, so we're going to put two problems up. And I want you to do both of those. And one of those, the coefficient is the 7 is a coefficient. In the other one, it's a power. So what do you do? Right, so this is 7 squared times 7. It's 7 cubed, right? It's just like x squared times x, which would be x cubed. Over here, the 7 is a coefficient. It is in front of the letter. You actually multiply those 7s and get 49, right? Know the difference between a coefficient and a power. Where it's a coefficient, it actually gets multiplied, right? When it's a power, you're doing what we're doing today. X squared times x, x cubed. There's no little comma there. That's just a stray mark. Okay. Next one. Let's do both of these at the same time. Right, so there it's a power. So it's 5 to the 4th power. Here, 5 is a coefficient. It's in front of a letter. It's multiplying a letter. It's 25y to the 4th. If you get this screen, you're going to do fine in your homework. Please make sure you understand this screen. So whenever you see negative x or opposite of x, that's got a negative 1 coefficient, right? So the coefficient there is negative 1. So negative 1 times 9, negative 9. X times x, x squared. Negative x times 9x, negative 9x squared. Okay. So negative 7 times negative 1, positive 7. X times x, x squared. Y times y to the 5th, y to the 6th. Right, so these look harder, but they're really not, as long as you know what a coefficient is. Right, so 4 times 2 is 8. You look for the ones with the same base. The base there is x. X squared times x to the 5th, x to the 7th. Then you look for the other ones with the same base. Y cubed times y to the 6th, y to the 9th, and you're done. That's all you can do. That's as simple as you can make it. 8x to the 7th, y to the 9th. Right? That looks like it's going to be hard, but it's not. Negative 8 times 6 times 2. Right? You can multiply numbers in any order. 6 times 2 is 12. Right? And 12 times 8 is 96. And there's one negative, so it's negative 96. Then you look for the x's. So I'll use some colors here. So x times x, there's no other x. So it's x squared, right? Because there's just two of them. And then we've got y times y, y squared times y cubed. And then we've got z times z cubed, z to the 4th. And so that whole answer simplifies to negative 96 x squared y cubed z to the 4th. Say that out loud. Negative 96 x squared y cubed z to the 4th. Right, so just like yesterday, write these out and you won't mess them up. People try to go too fast with these and then they get the wrong answer. Right, this has two negatives, so it must be a positive. And then you add these exponents. So it's x to the 10th, Look at it. If you write this, it's the same as all the others. Yeah, there is a shortcut there, but it's a bad shortcut because people mess up that shortcut all the time. Write it out. Right? You treat this just like x. It says simplify. So it's 8 to the 6th. Again, you write this out, you see it's 4 times 4 is 16 for the coefficients. Y cubed times y cubed, y to the 6th. So here's the practice. Right, you're simplifying, so you just do 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. 1 negative, negative y to the 6th. 1 negative, negative 36 x cubed, because there's a 1 there. Negative 2 times negative 8, positive 16, x cubed times x, x to the 4th. Y squared times y to the 5th, y to the 7th. All right, now this is 1/3 squared. Oh my goodness, okay. 1/3 squared, all right, to the 4th. So let's write that out. 1/3 squared to the 4th. It's that, right? It's that 4 times. Well, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 8. So it's 1/3 to the 8th. Yeah, now there is this 2 times 4 shortcut. I get nervous when people do it. Right? It'll work here as well, but let's see that. All right, so erase. So it's negative 5x to the 6th times negative 5x to the 6th. Negative 5 times negative 5, positive 25. X to the 6th times x to the 6th, x to the 12th. Right? You can multiply those numbers for the x, but the problem is you still have to realize this is negative 5 times negative 5, and that's where people mess up. That's why I'm not a big fan of that multiplying shortcut right you see right there. It's why it's not in the notes. Right? Just write them out and add your exponents every time, and you don't get them wrong. So, by the way, this is a funny font because if you'll notice maybe in the notes, there's a typo here, but this one is correct. Okay, so you don't have to, right? 4 times negative 7 made this negative 28. X squared times x is x cubed, so that's right. We're looking at the y's. So this looks complicated. We just have to look at the y's. Y to the question mark times y squared equals y to the 7th. What does the question mark have to be? It is 5.